There you go. All right.
Okay. Oh my gosh, my phone's messing. Okay. Okay, so before I share my testimony with you guys, I just want to say that public speaking is really hard for me, and it's always been, especially about this subject. But I really feel like that just kind of shows how much of a God thing this is, because I would never want to be up in front of a bunch of people talking about the things that I struggle with. But I feel like God has really been putting on my heart to learn how to be more vulnerable and open with people, and not only to help a few of you guys that might be going through this kind of stuff too, but just to teach me how to open up to people more, because I really struggle with being able to talk to people, even if it's just a family member or a close friend, let alone an entire room of middle and high schoolers. But so yeah, with that being said, I'm just gonna share my testimony and talk about it a little bit. So this whole entire thing started at the beginning of 7th grade, so the beginning of last year. I was actually a really confident and outgoing person, which if you know me now, you would know that being outgoing and confidence is something that I really struggle with. But that's just because I let my insecurities and the way I viewed myself change my identity. And the hatefulness towards myself kind of came into my life, and it just hasn't ever really left. I saw myself feeling never good enough for anybody, and I felt like I was just being used, and I didn't feel like I had any strong relationships with anybody. And I'm not going to go into detail about everything that happened last year, because that would be a really long story, but it was just a really hard year for me, and just a really hard time in my life. But then last summer I went to a Bible camp with this youth group, and that's where I made the decision to accept Jesus into my life. And it was a moment that I'll never forget, because my mind had been so overwhelmed for such a long time. And when I did that, I just kind of felt this peace and stillness that's kind of undescribable, but it was just really cool seeing God work through me. And I just felt this lovingness when I didn't feel like I was worth being loved. And I was really confident to start the new school year, and I was ready to share my testimony and be all excited about God. But what I didn't realize is that giving your life to God doesn't mean that everything's going to get better. You're still going to be facing the same struggles, but this time the Lord will be walking with you and giving you hope. But I just assumed that all my problems were going to be gone, and I didn't understand that a relationship with God has to go both ways, and you have to want to grow in order to grow. So it's a really weird way of thinking, but I just thought that after I accepted God into my life that I wouldn't have to struggle. And I was okay for a while after the school year started, when things were good, but then things started to get bad again, and I started seeing I was falling back into my old ways, and I started viewing myself as not worth it and not good enough. And it was really hard, because I felt like everyone hated me, and now even God hated me, and I felt like he left me. And this is just when things really went south in my life, and I had a really bad relationship with my parents. I didn't feel like I had any friends that I was confident enough to open up about this kind of stuff, and I didn't feel like I could even be real at youth group, because I was scared of being judged, because I had already accepted God into my life. So I was scared that people would look at me different because I was struggling with the same stuff. I started cutting people out of my life, and I had really bad trust issues, which caused me to feel really alone and hopeless, because everything that I thought about myself the year before, I was feeling it again, but it was even worse. I wasn't just chubby, I was fat. I wasn't just ugly, I was hideous. I wasn't just dumb, I was an idiot. Everything that I thought about myself was just horrible, and it was hard because I didn't have any way to talk about it. And it just caused me to be really depressed, and I felt really alone. So I just got really depressed, and I would come home from school almost every day, and I would just lock myself in the bathroom and cut my arms, because I didn't know how to cope with how much I hated myself. I stopped eating as much because I was scared of gaining weight and being ugly. And I went through a really bad week where I would throw away my lunches almost every day at school, because I was scared that people would think I was fat, or I have no idea. But it was really hard, and I just really wanted to die because I felt bad that people had to live with somebody like me, and I felt like I was just a burden. And if it wasn't for this youth group, I'd probably be in a really bad spot right now, like even worse of a spot. But it was for that one night when Zach had us at the back, and he was like naming off things that we struggled with, and if it applied to us, we'd take a step forward. And when I took a step and I saw so many other people in the room take a step, I realized that I'd been believing a lie that I was alone for such a long time. And there was so many other people struggling with the same stuff, yet I felt so alone. And that's when God really was speaking to me and telling me that I'm going to have hurt and I'm going to have pain in my life, but I'm never going to be actually alone. And it was just really cool hearing God speak to me and telling me that, because I had felt so distant from him from such a long time. And I felt like it was like really reassuring hearing his voice. And I want to make it clear, like how Zach said before, that I've made this mistake a lot of times, acting like I was okay when I'm not. So like, just because I'm sitting up here and like talking about this doesn't mean I still don't struggle with all of this stuff, because I feel like that'd be lying to all of you guys and also lying to myself, which I don't want to do anymore because I'm trying to get away from that. But I am ready to refocus and learn how to be better at that kind of stuff. And something that God really put on my heart that helped me feel a lot better is that the God that created like everything, like all of humanity, all the oceans and rivers and forests, like the God who created everything looked at the world and thought it needed one of you too. Like, you're not valuable or not good enough because you're fearfully and wonderfully made in his image, and in God's eyes, you're perfect. So I think we should really just stop believing the enemy's lies that we all believe in, because it's giving the enemy what he wants, because we're becoming more and more broken the more and more lies we believe. So I think we should all just start trying to view ourselves as God views us. And yeah, that's all I have to say.